Right, the situation is I've got a day off, but I can't go far because I'm on puppy monitoring detail. She's asleep in the kitchen at the moment because she's just had a dinner, but I'm sure she'll make an appearance sometime before we finish. So what my idea is today is I've got my fire cat starting kit out, and I just want to practice and have a look at the differences and the pros and cons between a flint and steel fire starting and ferrocerium rod. So I've got a flint and steel kit here which was supplied to me by Mad Dog Survival and consists of some stones, sharp edged stones, in this case flint, and a fire steel made out of a file. You need one more ingredient for a flint and steel kit to be effective, and that's charred material, and I've charred some material in this tin. For the ferrocerium rod, also supplied by Mad Dog Survival, is a ferrocerium rod there, and as a striker, actually a striker came with it, which is a hacksaw blade, but I'm also going to try the back of a Mora high carbon steel knife, the Mora Bushcraft Black. So that's what I'm going to do today, and I'm going to do each one independently, and then we'll just talk about the pros and cons of each one, or perhaps I'll do that as I go through. So I'll start with flint and steel, and remember, this is me learning, it's not me giving you my expert opinion. If you want expert opinion, probably the channel to go to is the David West channel. He probably knows as much about bushcraft fire starting techniques as anybody. But sometimes it's good to see a person who's not experienced just going through it, and then we can work through any mistakes and see how easy it is. Although both of these techniques I have used before. So anyway, we'll start with flint and steel, and in the case of flint and steel we need the three items. It doesn't have to be flint, in this case I've got some flint here, but it does have to be a very hard material that'll capable of shaving off pieces of metal. So what you're doing effectively is taking your flint and your steel, and you're striking your steel on your flint on a sharp edge, and you're scraping off minute pieces of metal which are igniting in the atmosphere due to the heat you've given them with the friction and the oxygen in the air. And it's the iron that's actually burning, oxidizing, quickly rusting because it's so small. So that gives you sparks, but it gives you fairly low temperature sparks. So we need something to catch those sparks and get an ember. In fact, we need a bit more than that, because we need to catch the spark to form an ember, and then we need material to grow the ember, which I hadn't thought about. So I'm going to have to go and get that now. Okay, so I'm going to have to make a bird's nest, and this grass is not very long, so it's going to be hard to shape, but we should be able to do something with it. Got some more there which is a bit coarser. and I've got some there which has some fine material in it. Perhaps that's the best. Might go with that. Right, so you need quite a lot of kit to use a flint and steel method of fire starting. You need a lot of kit, but all the kit is readily available. You can find the hard stones. Now, we live in an area where until recently I thought there was no flint, but we do have quartz, and you can use quartz. But on my way back from the beach from a previous video, I spotted a small piece of flint. So I went back on an expedition a bit later on, and I found I have a supply of quite large nodules of flint. So from thinking I had none in my area, I find I have quite a lot. This one has got no absolutely sharp edges on it. It would have to be smashed with another rock or a hammer to get to form some sharp edges. If there's none in your area, no flint or quartz or other hard, fine-grained silica based rock, you can always try a fancy stone, garden stone specialists. They might have some. Or failing that, there's something else I've found I haven't tried yet, but I think it should work, and that's a big thick piece of glass. But be careful, because I don't know how that's going to react to hitting it with a piece of iron. Best wear safety glasses and gloves probably if you're trying glass. So that's the stone sorted out. The striker, in this case I've got a piece of file, and it has to be a high carbon hardened steel. I'm suspecting that my Mora bushcraft knife would produce sparks because it's high carbon steel, but if I start belting it with a piece of flint, I'm not going to do it a lot of good, but at some point I will test whether that works. I suspect it will, because it's high carbon steel. But when I was at Bisley last year, and we took this burner with us which we can force air in, and one of the lads there is a blacksmith of Manticore knives. He makes bushcraft knives. He talked me through enough blacksmithing so I could make a striker, and I made this striker out of one of these, a piece of a broken coil spring, and these are just a few I've picked up, okay, over perhaps a year maybe, but I've found more than these. So they're not hard to come by, pieces of coil spring off cars. They hit the potholes, break the springs, bits fall off on the road. Keep your eyes peeled, pick them up, and you can work them into a striker. So everything you need for a flint and steel kit is readily available. You of course need the char cloth as well to take the low temperature spark. You just make that out of natural material, and there's plenty of videos on how to make char cloth. In fact, I've made some myself on at least one occasion, and I've got some here. The most important thing about your char cloth is keep it dry, because on damp days it will absorb moisture. So if you can't keep it dry and you're throwing a spark into it, well, it's not going to do the spark much good if it's moist. And this is fairly fragile, but not so fragile it doesn't stain. I can't tear it into the sections I want it, and it'll stay in place, and I can fold it over, and I'm aiming to get sparks on those little edges there. So we'll give it a go. Okay then, so I've got my bird's nest, and I've put a little bit of char cloth in there because there's no reason to stint ourselves. Best we use a bit extra char cloth, which is easy to make, than have to go through the whole process several times. So I put a bit of char cloth in there. I'm going to get another bit of char cloth out. Just going to fold it in half. I'm going to use the edges of the char cloth to try and take the flame. Now these pieces of flint, they do work, but they are a little bit small, so but we'll use what we've got just to show that it does work. Now this is the file, an old hard carbon steel file, and this should cause a spark, catch the char cloth, and then we can light the bird's nest from that. We are getting sparks. Not a lot of sparks because I think I've dulled that edge down now. Oh, in fact it is a light, so just folding it up a bit. I hope you can see that that is well. Can you see that? That's well and truly a light. Well and truly a light. But I'm not going to go with that. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to put it out. Right, we know the file works quite well, so we can put that aside. What I'm going to try now is the fire steel made out of the car spring coil rod. And I'm going to get another bit of flint, a little bit bigger bit of flint. Try and find a sharp edge. Right, we'll give this one a go. It's a bit covered in mud this, but or sand, but give it a go as it is. You can't always see when it catches, but that's caught. That's caught. That should stay like now. In fact, you bring it close to my lips and I can feel the heat on it. Put it in there. There we go. So that's essentially flint and steel. So you do need quite a bit of equipment. You have to have prepared beforehand. It's not really going to work if anything's damp, especially your char cloth. You've got to keep your char cloth dry because it's just a low temperature spark. So you've got to carry round with you not a large weight of equipment, but certainly a lot heavier than the weight of a lighter. So I'll put them all back in there. I'll put that away. Now we'll go to the Ferrocerium rod. Now most bushcrafters carry one of these, the Ferrocerium rod, and it's a rod made out of quite a number of different metals, and it's heavy. It's just like a, you know, it's like if it was a piece of steel, a steel bar basically. So the bigger one you get, the heavier it's going to be. And again, from bushcraft, from Mad Dog Survival, he sent me one which is conveniently in a handle, so you've got a lot of control over it, and there's a striker come with it. But if you carry a bushcraft knife with you, you can, with a lot of bushcraft knives, get a 90-degree spine on the back of your knife, so there's a nice 90-degree angle on that edge, so that edge is fairly sharp. And you need, whatever you're using as your striker on this, it has to be a hard steel or something hard. In fact, even a piece of chert should be hard enough, because all you're doing is causing friction and scraping the alloys off. And this thing consists of quite a number of metals, iron being one, cerium being another, magnesium, which gives you the hot temperature. The sparks thrown off by this will be about 3000 degrees C, as opposed to the sparks from your Flint and Steel Kit, which will only be about 800. So you don't need char cloth with this, although obviously it will work with char cloth, but you don't need char cloth. I think where most people probably fall down with the fire, like I am here, is preparation. Well, really, I should attend it a little bit more. But anyway, back to the Ferrocerium rod. So there's several different metals in here that end up giving you quite a high temperature spark. So you don't have to rely on having char cloth with you. In fact, what a lot of bushcrafters use is the fatwood shavings from a resinous wood, and this is a very resinous wood. It's the fatwood I got. I haven't found a good local supply of fatwood yet, although I'm sure there is one somewhere. Just put that one side a minute, and you can make like sawdust type shavings, and I'm using the back of the knife to do that. and then you can gather all these shavings up, and your Ferrocerium rod will ignite them. I'm losing half of them down here. I'm losing half. I'm losing the other half to the wind. Yeah. The dogs woke up. And I'm going to add a few of Mad Dog Survival's fatwood shavings in here. When you leave your fatwood exposed to the air for a long time, I've collected this a few months ago, so some of the smell has worn off. You've got to open it up again and get the smell out. Now I've got a few flakes there, just a few. Get them into that fat wood. And then hopefully that'll set the whole lot off when I get some sparks going in there. No. There we go. So we got there in the end. I'm sure if I'd have used char cloth it would have gone straight away, but look at how that fat wood's burning now. But I was beginning to think I wasn't going to get it alight at all there. So obviously I need a bit more experience, and obviously it's not quite as easy as what a lot of more experienced people make it look. I've just got to go and see where the dog is now. What's the matter with you? Hey? What's the matter? Will nobody play with you? Hey? Nobody will play with you? Here. Right, so it just goes to show that in both instances really preparation is important, and I probably need to do a little bit more preparation. So you have got to, don't expect to be going out into the woods and everything to work all nice and easy. Certainly didn't work easy for me, and I'm not in the woods, I'm in my back garden. So I would say from that, if you want to get a fire started now, there are probably other methods I would prefer, like for instance, we've burnt all the bark up now, haven't we? There we go. So if I want to get a fire going now, well, it was going until the wind blew it out. So there's a fire going now. So I would recommend carrying one of those, but I would recommend carrying one of these, but I would recommend practicing with it. And I think from my experience here anyway, I think that using your sharp knife, if you need to get a fire going, a fire is very important, and you can sharpen your knife. So I'm not beyond scraping a few scrapings off first. I mean, perhaps you can do it with the back of your knife as well. Yeah, you can. Okay, perhaps the back of this knife is now starting to get a little bit blunt. See if I can do it left-handed. Use the other side of the knife. Okay, you haven't got quite so much control with your left hand as you have with your right hand, and you haven't got quite so much control using the blade as with the back of the knife. So my conclusions are, I will always try to take a lighter or a stormproof matches with me. I do have a Ferrocerium rod on my knife, the Ferrocerium rod there, but I do need perhaps a little bit more practice with it. This is a fairly good way of starting a fire, but you need to keep enough gear with you. You need to keep some char cloth with you. And in an emergency, or not in an emergency, but in some situations you might be able to, with the knowledge of how this works, you might be able to find the materials to make it on the scene. You certainly are not going to make a Ferrocerium rod on the scene, but it certainly is a very, very, very good fire starter if you know how to use it and you've got the gear to use it. But as I said, this is probably the best bit of flint to try it with. But it can be a bit difficult to get the sparks to land where you want them to land. Although it throws off hot sparks, it can be a bit difficult to get them to go where you want them, and you can easily end up knocking your bundle all over the place. This might be a little bit drier now. Okay, I know you should use the back of your spine, but if you want to get a fire started, it is much more efficient to use the blade. You get a lot more spark off it. That is fairly damp. So, as I keep saying, you have got to muck about with your gear. It's no good watching how other people use it and going out into the woods and then thinking you're going to do exactly the same, because even just simple things like holding the knife at an angle that will get you the sparks in the first place is not straightforward. And do you have the dexterity and the muscle groups in your hand to apply the force where you want the force applied? I'm a little bit stinted in this, in that it doesn't have a handle. This has a really good grip handle. It's a bit thinner though, so I'm going to wear it away faster. This needs a handle on it, some sort of handle. So that's all I was doing, not teaching you, but learning myself and looking after the dog at the same time. Jess, come on then. Daft dog. Now that's hot, so I wanted to keep away from that, but I was teaching her to come up the ramp, you see, so teaching her a bit of agility at a very young age. There's nothing up here that needs eating, and I would have thought that the fat wood would have been a bit strong for you. Come on then, let's get down. Go on, get down the ramp. Go on. Go on. Right, so that concludes this little play with the fire steel and the ferrocerium rod. And neither of them are as easy as what a lot of people relatively experienced people make them look. So I urge you to get out and practice with them. It's only through practicing that it will become easy. It's not easy to start off with. Right then, will you stop eating all the fat wood, eh? What good's that going to do you, eh? What good's eating the fat wood going to do you, eh? Clear your nostrils out, that'll be about it. Come on then. We've got a bit of serious play time. Get down. You're going to jump for it, are you? Good dog. You're a daft dog, aren't you? You are. You are. I've got Teddy. I have. Oh, you've got big Teddy. You've got big Teddy and I've got little Teddy. We'll try and get on the bottom of the ramp. Try and get on the ramp at the bottom. At the bottom. You dafty. You're daft, aren't you? Eh? You are. Try and get on the ramp at the bottom, not halfway up. Come on. Good dog. That's a good dog. What a good dog. What a good dog. What a good dog. What a good dog.